And Facebook, coming in YouTube, getting ready to start my show called Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. Running a little bit late. I usually go right at 5 o'clock when I do one of these 5 o'clock ones. So I'm going to hop right into the show as soon as I see a few people coming on. Come on in, make yourselves at home. Got some good news for the cause of low carb ketogenic diets here. What's up, Wincy? What's up, Beth? Scott? What's going on, guys? Thanks for being here today. Welcome, YouTubers. Appreciate you guys being here. What's up, Dan Quibble? Dan the Bacon Man. What's up, Nancy? Yeah, we need to get going here on Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. And here we go. A prominent low-carb doctor in Australia has been vindicated now. Some dietitians were trying to bring him down, but he just was found not guilty and apologized to. Click on that little box down there in the corner to watch the full details on IGTV here on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me, though. I'm over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live in the content. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Sometimes we do these 5 p.m. Eastern Time ones like we're doing here today. And then on the weekends, generally we do it in the afternoon, somewhere around 2 o'clock if we decide to do weekend Jimmy Rants. But thank you for being here to watch it live here today. We're also simulcasting over here on my Facebook page. So what's up, guys? Thanks for being here as well. And finally, we have my YouTubers. So thank you guys for being here as well, watching the live stream over on YouTube. If you missed the live, though, you can watch it on replay right here on IGTV. So go check it out after the show. We also put them up over on YouTube in archived form. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show. Finally, you can go to JimmyRants.com, where we house all the past episodes of this here show. We're getting ready to hit 500 episodes. So we've been doing this for a little while and try to put out really good content here on Jimmy Rants. Okay, you guys, today is a happy day on Jimmy Rants because we have been noticing over the past few years a trend to try to silence the voices promoting low-carb, high-fat diets. And we saw it very prominently over in South Africa with Professor Tim Noakes. And Professor Noakes had to go through a multi-year process of trying to defend his good name for some tweet that he put out there that somebody had asked him a question about low carb and babies, and he answered it. Anyway, so you might know that story where he went through this long ordeal. They brought in testimony after testimony after testimony about how there wasn't enough science to support low-carb diets, and thus Professor Noakes needs to be silenced. Well, then Professor Noakes says, okay, game on. Let's bring all of the evidence. He brought in people like Nina Teicholz, like Zoe Harcum. He had all kinds of people come and testify. They're in South Africa in a court of law showing the veracity of a low-carb ketogenic diet. And after they ran his name through the mud for years, and after his poor family went through so much turmoil and stress, and mind you, all the legal fees that were involved, he was vindicated. This was a couple of years ago, this happened now, but he was fully vindicated of all the charges that were brought against him. Well, guess what? 4 years ago, the same thing happened in Australia to this orthopedic surgeon. His name is Dr. Gary Fettke, and full disclosure, I know Gary personally. I have done several speaking tours in the country of Australia. Gary lives on Tasmania, so if you're not familiar with Australia, there's the mainland where Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, all that, and all the deadly snakes in the middle. That's the mainland, but they have other territories that are a part of Australia, not on the mainland, and one of those is Tasmania. Well, that is where Gary Fettke lives, is Tasmania. I had the great opportunity to speak with him, share a stage with him when I was in Australia. I want to say it was like 4 years ago that we shared a stage. It was right before all of this happened. He was getting ready to have this go down. I remember the event because we stayed with Gary in his home, and he's got a whole home that's totally solar powered, you guys. No electricity at all. He gets all these solar panels, and humongous home. Had a great time just hanging out with him. Him and his wife Belinda are some of the nicest people you will ever meet in your life, and they are passionate about getting people healthy. And so that night that we got to speak, by the way, 600 people came out to hear Gary Fettke. He was making a huge impact in Tasmania, in Australia. And so he got the ire of some dietitians there. And in Australia, just as it is in Canada and to a lesser degree here in America, but in Australia, the dietitians think they rule the roost on anything to do with nutrition, and that nobody outside of the dietitians is allowed to say anything about nutrition. And so when he comes along and he starts talking about, oh yeah, I have people go on low carb healthy fats, and we help them with their obesity and we help them with their type 2 diabetes. Yeah, the dietitians didn't like that too well, because they think low fat hung the moon. They think carbs are essential in your diet. And so here is an orthopedic surgeon that they think is unqualified to talk about nutrition. And they came after him, you guys. And I want to read a story that gives you a little bit of the background here. Here it is. So the case arose in 2014. So it's actually been 6 years ago that this started. And there was 3 anonymous dietitians who lodged complaints against Fettke with his professional organization, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, AHPRA. And chief among the complaints was that he was advising his patients with obesity and type 2 diabetes to go on a low-carb healthy fat diet, LCHF. The dietitians claimed that this diet was completely inappropriate advice and not based on any scientific evidence. They also claimed that LCHF was inconsistent with Australia's dietary guidelines, as well as the National Heart Foundation position statement on dietary fats. See, guys, oftentimes when I talk about dietary guidelines here in America, people kind of scoff. Well, nobody pays attention to them. They don't really mean anything, and it's just useless to even try to talk about them because nobody follows them anyway. No. What guidelines do is they set precedent. And these dietitians were able to come after a good man simply because the teachings he was sharing with his patients was going against what those official guidelines were. And the National Heart Foundations, just like the American Heart Association, they think saturated fat is the grand enemy in your heart health. And so that's why these things matter, you guys. That was the basis on which these 3 anonymous dietitians, were able to come after a good man, a medical professional, using low-carb ketogenic diets to help his patients lose weight and get healthy from their diabetes. They came after him simply because he went against the grain, all pun intended, of what the dietary guidelines there in Australia say and what the National Heart Foundation, which is the official heart association there, and their statement about dietary fats. So let me read from this article, and this was written, by the way, by Marika Savoros. If you're not familiar with her, in South Africa, she's one of the leading journalists there, and she did the whole Tim Noakes trial. Well, she penned this really great article all about what has happened here in Australia. And if you just joined us, you've heard about Professor Tim Noakes over in South Africa and all the hell that they put him through for promoting low-carb ketogenic diets. Well, it happened in Australia as well, and today is good news because every single one of the charges that were brought against Dr. Gary Fettke in Tasmania, Australia, have been dropped, and as you're going to find out here in a minute, they've apologized to him for the whole ordeal he's had to go through. Like, this is big, huge. He's a free and vindicated man, Dr. Gary Fettke. The Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency dropped all charges against him in a letter sent directly to Gary Fettke. AHPRA clears him of all wrongdoing and any misconduct in a case that has dragged on for more than 4 years. The agency also apologized for the actions that have been taken against him. Those actions include slapping a lifetime ban on him in 2016. So this was 4 years ago. He was told, you are not allowed to talk about nutrition with your patients. He had always brought in nutrition with his patients. And then they basically gave him a gag order that says, nope, you can't do that till we finish our investigation. So for 4 years, he has had an answer to share with his patients about how to get healthy, but he was not allowed to talk about anything nutrition. Not just any nutrition, but his advocacy for low-carb healthy fats. The ban is now gone, but Fettke said, screw that, I'm telling them about low-carb healthy fat anyway. If you know anything about Gary personally, he is not one that's a conformist. He pretty much follows his own tune, and that's why so many of us love him, is he's a bit of a rebel. He and his wife Belinda announced this ruling in a jubilant post on a website called I Support Gary, which I have that printed out here in a minute. Fettke told me, talking about the journalist here, immediately after getting the letter that his first reactions were tears of intense relief. His wife was his voice when they tried to silence him. The couple has spoken of massive personal and professional toll that this case has taken on him and his family. See, this is the bad thing, you guys. 3 anonymous dietitians here in Australia ruined a good man's life. They did. And for what purpose? To what end? Because he was promoting a diet that they happen to disagree with? Like, what kind of world do we live in that you can just go after somebody with really no evidence whatsoever to just go after them willy-nilly, make claims against them, bring charges up against them, have them go through a whole ordeal, legal fees, personal turmoil, the stress of it all, and now it's like, okay, he's been freed, but look at what he went through, and we're going to see what he wants to happen now. It needs to be even more than what he's saying here. He did say it's a huge relief after years of being treated as if I did something wrong. His patients were also told that his recommendations were dangerous and his advice would kill them. So not only did they come after him, they were going to all his patients and saying, look, the advice he's telling you, it's going to kill you. You eat all that saturated fat, it's going to clog your arteries, and it's going to harm you. Man, the fear-mongering, just because they disagree with the science that supports low-carb ketogenic diets, like, this is preposterous. Fettke has now called for heads to roll. I bet he has. The case was the result of vexatious complaints, he said. AHPRA's notoriously secretive complaints and the prejudicial investigation processes have been aggravating factors. They've held all its hearings against him, all in secret. None of this was made public. He was not able to be judged one way or the other in the court of public opinion because they did everything in secret. Did not allow him to attend any of the meetings where they were deciding his fate. They did not allow him to defend himself. Now, if that happened here in America, we have laws in place that allow you to defend yourself. But in this case, he was not. They also refused to reveal any of the evidence that they had against him because they didn't have any. Legal experts described their actions as a kangaroo court. Yeah. So now his comprehensive exoneration is likely to reignite the debate about the influence of what's called medical evangelism on official dietary guidelines. Now, Gary Fettke has been very outspoken looking at how we got dietary guidelines. If you've not looked him up, go on YouTube, you guys. Type in Gary, last name Fettke, and I want you to watch some of Gary's videos where he's done lectures all about the role of the Seventh-day Adventist Church worldwide. The reason we have low fat, the reason we have meat being unhealthy, the reason we have healthy whole grains is all influenced from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Maybe this is news to you. Maybe you've never heard this before. Go look him up on YouTube. Your eyes will be opened as to how we got into dietary guidelines promoting low-fat, high-carb diets. It's pretty amazing. And of course, they did it all under the guise of being more spiritual and closer to God and resisting the worldly urges and blah, blah, blah. Go watch Gary. It's compelling stuff. His case is also likely to put the spotlight back on the Dietitians Association of Australia. We need like a Darth Vader theme. Dun, 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 when you say the Dietitians Association of Australia. And they have tons, you guys, of industry ties to food companies. They are not independent. They do not speak from a third-party position on nutrition. They don't like it that there's a medical doctor saying, oh yeah, screw all that processed food, just eat healthy fats, just eat low carb, eat a lot of animal-based foods. They don't like that. So this case came up in 2014 because of the anonymous dietitians lodging the complaint. I already said all those things. A Senate inquiry in 2016 brought their actions against Fettke under special scrutiny. At this inquiry in 2016 before the Senate, Fettke also spoke movingly about being intimidated and bullied at the hands of the medical establishment because of this case. So when this came against him, he got a black eye amongst his medical colleagues and the medical groups and associations he was a part of. Guys, when I say they ruined his life, they ruined his career. They knocked him off course of the things he was doing. He was rolling along too well. They had to slow that down. The Senate inquiry put AHPRA under notice and suggested that Fettke refer his case to the National Health Practitioner Ombudsman and Privacy Commissioner. The Ombudsman saw process issues and referred the case back to the medical board to reconsider in June of 2018. So, here is a big part of this, you guys. It's significant, according to Gary Fettke, that not one single one of his patients, not one single patient, lodged a complaint about him promoting a nutritional approach like low-carb, healthy fat, ketogenic with them. In the letter to Fettke, where they exonerated him and apologized, AHPRA acknowledged no harm came to patients from his dietary advice. They also acknowledged there's no significant risk apparent in telling patients to go on an LCHF approach as a dietary option. So in the letter, it states, no significant risks to public safety have been identified that require a regulatory response under the national law. In the case of each of the three issues considered, there is no evidence of any actual harm, and nor does the medical board discern any particular risk to public health and safety moving forward. For these reasons, the board has decided that we will take no further regulatory action. They also cleared him of any breach of good medical practice by referring to its code of conduct. The code states that good patient care involves, listen to this, encouraging patients to take an interest in and responsibility for the management of their health. This is what gets me. A medical doctor like Gary Fettke, trying to help his patients stay off of medications, trying to help them understand there are better ways and natural ways to get healthy without the need for procedures and medications and all the typical things you get from the mainstream medicine establishment. Why don't they recognize that that's a better thing than the drugs and the procedures and all the other things that you get from a typical medical doctor? And if you're encouraging patients to take an interest in and responsibility for the management of their own health, and that includes putting them on a diet that is making all of their risk factors in obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all get better, why are we going after those kinds of doctors? We need to be replicating those kinds of doctors. I don't know about you, but here in America, I would love to go see a doctor that when I go in, he supports my low-carb ketogenic choice. He gives me all the medical attention that I need from his training, yada, yada. But then he's like, oh, well, let's take a look at your diet. And are you comfortable with it? Are you enjoying it? Okay, are there ways we can tweak it? You're never going to get that conversation in America from the mainstream medicine because they're not trained in nutrition. They only want to throw you on a drug or do a procedure. The code states that the doctors have a right to inform their patients and colleagues of treatments to which they conscientiously object. That's the code that they tried to bring him down on. Fettke has said he prefers not to have to amputate the limbs of his diabetic patients when a simple dietary change can save them. Why is this controversial? Would we rather chop off limbs of diabetic patients who have out of control type 2 diabetes, or, gee, I don't know, cut your carbs, eat more healthy fats, get into ketosis, and maybe you keep your fingers and toes and feet? Why is this controversial? It shouldn't be. And why are good low-carb doctors being put on notice by dietitians, busybody dietitians? I hope to God they go after those anonymous dietitians. Again, here in America, if you're being charged with something, you get the opportunity to face the people that are charging you with things. You can't have anonymous complaints against you without you being able to confront your accusers. Gary never got to do that. I hope they go after these people. AHPRA's letter and apology go beyond just clearing him up professionally. The letter's wording clearly implies there is absolutely no harm in any health professional in the country of Australia recommending low-carb, high-fat therapies. And that's true. This now, you guys, sets a precedent, at least in the country of Australia, that here's a doctor using low-carb ketogenic diets with his patients and was brought up on charges by 3 dietitians that he was harming them, and they concluded after 4 years of intense investigation that it was completely fine. This precedent, you guys, along with Professor Tim Noakes in South Africa, we are setting the stage for if something ever like that happens here in America, where one of the low-carb doctors gets brought up on charges. And oh, by the way, you don't know this, but behind the scenes, a lot of low-carb doctors are getting charges brought up against them. They're being reported to the medical board. You don't hear about that here in America because a lot of these doctors, and if I said their names, you would know some very prominent doctors in the low-carb keto space who have had to basically play it cool for a little while they were being investigated by the medical board. Now, as far as I know, not one single one of them has, had their medical license stripped for promoting low-carb diets, but they're trying to make this a chilling effect on those doctors that are just trying to help their patients. And if intimidation, bully tactics worked, they would be doing it all over the world. And everywhere this has been tried, you've got a very strong Professor Tim Noakes in South Africa. You got a very strong-willed Gary Fettke in Australia. And there's other ones that have had to face the music. Yeah, try it here in America. There is now worldwide precedence that ain't gonna fly. But it is being attempted. All health professionals who want to practice preventative medicine can now do so openly and without fear of repercussions, said Fettke. British obesity researcher Dr. Zoe Harcombe welcomed this news, knowing that this strong, caring, and principled couple, the apology means a great deal. It is too late in coming, but better late than never. Just saying sorry should mean we won't ever do it again. May Gary and Belinda be the last pioneers that the authorities try to harm. Gary Fettke remains upbeat. They were trying to silence him on LCHF, but they achieved the exact opposite. The message for science for nutrition and food as medicine has grown louder and spread globally. It's big. All right, so on his Facebook page, or Belinda's Facebook page, this is Dr. Gary Fettke's wife, it's unbelievable. We have been subjected to bullying, harassment, mobbing behavior from within the Tasmanian health system simply for raising issues of quality assurance and patient safety. We spent the last 4.5 years responding to all these notifications investigated by the Dietitians Association and has been subjected to intimidating star chamber investigations. We've been trying to clear his name, and finally today, this was put out there, he is free to recommend people reduce sugar and processed carbohydrates. He can now safely support patients and the community to achieve the health benefits of low-carb, healthy fat principles without fear. So guys, it's pretty good news, right? And I wanted to use this as a bigger picture of look what they try to do to silence people who are merely trying to help others. That's the overriding message I want you to get here. By the way, there's some other names of people that have come under fire. Dr. Annika Dahlqvist in Sweden. They tried to remove her medical credentials because she was promoting low-carb, high-fat. I got to meet her on one of my low-carb cruises one year. Beautiful, wonderful woman, and she's just always smiling, and yeah, so she just really, she did a bang-up job, and hers was almost 10 years ago that they came after her. Karen Zen is a dietitian in New Zealand. I know Karen personally. I've spoken side by side with her and Grant Schofield in New Zealand, doing really good work. Jennifer Elliott is a dietitian in Australia. The thing about Jennifer, though, they did take away her dietitian's license because she promoted low-carb, high-fat. That's unfortunate. I'm hoping that because she was able to, or now we have this precedent with Gary, she will be able to reinstate her thing with the dietitian. The problem is, it's the dietitians who brought the charges against Gary. They're probably none too happy about this, so they're probably going to keep her out. So yeah, all of these dietetic associations are trying to protect, influence, and actively defend the cereal and grain industry, pushing a plant-based, whole grain, anti-meat agenda. So that's what they've been trying to do, you guys. So what I was saying is, we need to stop pandering to all of the organizations that are trying to shut out the message of low-carb diets. Currently, the one that's on the table is the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, which then instructs the world. And again, in this case against Gary, that's what they cited was the Dietary Guideline. Well, what he's promoting goes against the guidelines. Well, who made the guidelines absolutely 100% infallible? Who determined that that is absolutely the perfect way to eat and that there's no other alternative that can make someone healthy? And so I love that this discussion is being put out there. And I love that there's courageous people like Dr. Gary Fettke in Tasmania, Australia. And I'm hoping that he gets empowered. Let me tell you what happened with Professor Noakes. So Professor Tim Noakes over in South Africa, he went through a long ordeal. It was arduous, stressful on his family. It was very costly in legal fees, only to be vindicated at the end of it. And I was hoping, okay, at the end of that, he would be stronger and come out even louder than before. Guys, he's pretty much stayed silent. I think the intended purpose was to shut him up. And for all intents and purposes, they have. Now, he's still talking and he's still out there, but not near to the degree before all of this happened. And I hope this doesn't happen to Gary. I hope this invigorates him. This gets him even more fired up that what he believes in needs to be heard louder now than ever before. I just don't like this idea that people can randomly, anonymously bring up charges against these poor low-carb doctors who are merely trying to help their patients. And to what end? There needs to be more scrutiny involved in these charges. Okay, you think that they have caused harm to patients. Show us the patients who have been harmed. Show us the evidence that what he's promoting is not true. The unfortunate thing is they don't usually have evidence. What they have is repeating dietary guidelines, repeating standards of professional organizations that talk about heart health and diabetic organizations, blah, blah, blah. Here in America, we have the American Heart Association vehemently against saturated fat. The dietary guidelines promote a carb-based diet with very little fat. So they're going to try to cite those things. I'd be like, no. Show me the randomized controlled clinical trial that shows the veracity of your argument against them. And they won't be able to produce it, you guys, because that evidence simply doesn't exist. Most of the evidence that supports a low-fat, high-carb diet is observational, experimental, mouse studies, epidemiological type of studies. In fact, one of the biggest epidemiological studies in the world was the Women's Health Initiative. And they ran some numbers looking at all this data. So the Nurses Health Initiative, excuse me. So it was a bunch of women nurses, large group of people in this study. And there were different researchers trying to extrapolate things out of it. They were trying to show that these women cut their fat and therefore lost lots of weight and got their health under control. And yeah, it didn't happen. They didn't lose weight at all, despite the fact they obediently cut their fat and ate more healthy whole grains. And so the evidence has been lacking, and yet they keep pushing this same stupid advice that you and I know, because we've been enlightened and we see it for ourselves, how low carb, high fat has healed our bodies. Real food has healed us. And we don't need to be told anything otherwise. But they don't have evidence. But they still come after people like Professor Tim Noakes in South Africa. They still try to come after people like Dr. Gary Fettke in Australia. And guys, guess what? They're not losing. We are winning. And we need to celebrate that. And we need to stop rolling over and thinking, oh, there's nothing we can do. Oh, yeah? Screw that. There's a lot we can do. And thanks to the courage of people like Professor Noakes, people like Dr. Annika Dahlquist, people like Karen Zinn in New Zealand, and now people like Dr. Gary Fettke in Australia, we have precedent. It's good. And if you are a doctor here in America that promotes low-carb diets, you should feel emboldened today to keep doing it more than you ever have before. All right, I want to see what you guys have to say. Gonna pop over here to Instagram first, then we'll go to Facebook. Finally, we will go over to YouTube. So thank you all for being here today. TimmyRants.com is the website. See what you have to say about this awesome news. Kat says, how is that even possible and legal? Oh, they did it. They did it. Anonymously too, Kat. That's the funny part. It's like 3 dietitians didn't even have to give their name, didn't really have to do anything that proved what they supposed that Gary did. In fact, none of their patients complained at all. Now, if you had patient complaints, that would be a totally another discussion altogether. But these weren't patients. These are just dietitians that just did not like what he was doing, promoting low-carb diets, because that goes all against everything the Dietitians Association there in Australia, who again think they hung the moon when it comes to diet and health. They think they are the only purveyors of that knowledge. And it's as if a medical doctor like Dr. Fettke can't think for himself and do his own research and determine that there's better ways to do it than what we've been doing. So yeah, it's so majorly wrong. You are right about that. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let me pop over here to my Facebook page. What's up, guys? Thanks for being here today on Jimmy Rants. See what you have to say about this topic. Norma says, I knew you'd be here. Oh, I always have topics to talk about, and we're doing a special fasting focus this week, so it's like I've got all these fasting ones to do in the morning, so I'm like itching to do some of these other ones. So yeah, I'm very blessed to have a Kaiser primary care physician who supports my low-carb nutrition, including taking berberine instead of metformin. Yeah, Jacqueline, thank you for that. Berberine is basically a supplement that works in the same pathway as metformin. So yeah, that's good that you've got a Kaiser physician willing to work with you on your low-carb diet. Keep that up. Don't ever lose that doctor. All right, thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here to YouTube, see what you guys have to say. Everybody should press the like button, by the way. Oh, thank you for that, Roland. Shirley says it's so sad that they had to ruin his life over their opinion. And this is the thing. The dietitians were not stating medical fact. They were not stating any kind of truth. They merely said, oh, we believe that his low-carb, high-fat teachings of his patients to help them with their obesity and their diabetes, we just believe that's wrong. Okay, it's great to have a belief. It's great to have an opinion. But you ruined this man's life, putting him through hell and back. Why? Over what? To what end? Doesn't make sense. All right, let's see if there's anything else over here on Instagram. Nope. So, guys, what do you think about this? Dr. Gary Fettke, he's an orthopedic surgeon over in Tasmania, Australia. He's helping his patients get healthy. He's cutting their carbs. He's increasing their healthy fats. He is pushing them to eat real food and get into ketosis so he can save their limbs from being chopped off. Nothing but a good thing, if you ask me. Linda says, good afternoon. That is crazy. They can do that without their names being listed. See, that's the thing. That would not fly here in America. Here in America, if you get accused, you have the right to know who your accuser is. I don't know what the laws are like in Australia, but that seems weird that they would allow anonymous complaint to then put him and his wife through this rigmarole. And they basically silenced him for 4 years. He was not allowed, you guys, not at all allowed to speak up about this in the midst of it. He could not say a single thing about nutrition. He wasn't allowed to even anything regarding food. And anybody that knows anything about health, how do you talk about health and not talk about food? That doesn't make sense. Ryan says, we the people should start filing class action lawsuits against the damages of the low-fat movement and dietitians involved. I have talked about that one for years, Ryan, and you're right. Dietitians would have to crap their pants, and medical doctors that parrot them, and the Dietary Guidelines Committee, all of these associations and people, if you went to them and we filed a class action lawsuit, my health and my weight got worse because I followed your advice. If they had to basically defend what they thought was healthy, and we look for the evidence therein, oh my gosh, the you-know-what storm would be beautiful to watch unfold. Unfortunately, who has the guts or the money to get involved? And a lot of these dietitians are funded by big food companies who have deep pockets. A lot of the medical associations that would protect doctors, they're funded by the big pharmaceutical companies. Again, deep pockets. So I don't know how that would fly. Kat says that's what all American doctors do, talk about health without any knowledge about food. You're right, Kat. And I think it's high time that changes. It's why I think functional medicine doctors, naturopaths, all of these more natural medicine type of doctors are rising in popularity. I don't know about you, but I have trouble finding a really good doctor. And you know, I've got access to all kind of medical doctors in the keto space, so I'm very fortunate, but I'm just thinking in general, it would be nice to be able to reference, you know, people in areas. And again, some of you guys have great low carb doctors in your area. Don't ever lose them. Thank them often and, you know, keep seeing them. But that privilege is not out there for many people. Richard said the problem is that the politicians started the food pyramid in the 1970s. So will there be senators that do another commission on food like in the 70s? You're right. George McGovern was the one that led that. He bought into the Ansel Keys lie, hook, line, and sinker. I mean, he just thought low-fat diets hung the moon. We've got to codify that in our national government and make national dietary policy, dietary recommendations. And that's how we got into this mess that we're in. It was never founded on any science. The science it was supposedly covered under was Ansel Keys' 7-country study. Well, the 7-country study was actually a 26-country study, and it zigzagged all over the place. It didn't prove anything about saturated fat and cardiovascular disease, and yet that's the science they used to then push low-fat diets on us in the 1980s, and we're still dealing with it to this day. The 2020 dietary guidelines come out later this year. I don't expect any major changes in a positive direction whatsoever. They don't care. Kat says, I fight with doctors in real life sometimes, but I'm lucky to be one too, so I know what's going on, can only count on myself. Yeah, we need more doctors like you, Kat, willing to share the truth, because you know what's what when it comes to nutrition and its relationship to your health. And this needs to start at the medical school level. This needs to start at the dietetics school level. Let's get serious here. These dietitians that brought these charges against Dr. Gary Fettke, they were propagandized in dietetics school. And when you're propagandized to believe that saturated fat is the enemy, that you need lots of healthy whole grains, that meat's going to cause harm, blah, 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 what else do you expect them to do but to parrot that back out in the world? And they do, and then they use that as justification to come after a good doctor who has become woke about nutrition and is trying to help his patients with diabetes and obesity get healthier. This is a systematic thing that needs to go all the way back to the medical school training and the dietetics training. All right, I saw something come in over here on YouTube. Ryan says, I think the right approach for government is to show all the diets and for whom it might be most helpful. For example, type 2 could benefit from keto. Yeah, I've made that call for sure with the dietary guidelines. Let's stop making them monolithic. Stop pretending like there is a one-size-fits-all diet that works for everyone for all reasons, and to start giving people options. The unfortunate thing is the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, they don't want to look at anything that has to do with anybody that has any kind of condition, like obesity, like diabetes, like heart disease. They say that the dietary guidelines, at least here in America, are for healthy people. And so you eat this diet as a healthy person, and they say there's no harm, no foul. How many people in America are actually healthy? Most people have metabolic disturbance, insulin resistance, Obesity, it's not going to get better on its own. We need to have leadership from the top down, and that includes making sure the guidelines give choices like you suggested. I've been making that call for many years. We need to give people a low-carb option, a vegan option, a Mediterranean option, all these options, so that then people can pick and choose and then push them all equally as options that could be healthy. Unfortunately, that's not the way the guidelines work. I did a Jimmy Rants recently where there is a medical association funded by Coca-Cola. They created it specifically in 1980 with the first dietary guidelines. They created this medical association with the sole purpose of packing the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee with people that are in their group. And in 2020, over half of the members of the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee are a part of this group funded by Coke. The tragic thing is no carbs was the traditional way of dealing with diabetic symptoms before insulin, says Roland. Yeah, it was. And then they created insulin and they created medications to control blood sugar, and people thought that meant a free-for-all. This is something Dr. Gary Fettke understands. This is something that him and other low-carb doctors all over the world have long known, that you don't need medication to bring blood sugar and insulin levels down. You just got to cut the instigator that's raising them. And in this case, it's carbohydrate. Yep. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content, but you got to go follow me right here on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page. Thank you guys for being here, and as well on my YouTube stream. So thank you guys for being here as well. Roland says, thanks for the stream. Yeah, thanks for being here today. If you missed the live here on Instagram, you can watch it on replay on IGTV. It's a new feature. As soon as it's over, they let me post it right up on my page. So if you miss any of the past episodes, just go over to @LivingLowCarbMan and you can see all of my IGTV. So thank you for watching if you're watching this on the replay. We also throw it up over on YouTube on replay. And then finally, you can go to JimmyRants.com. We put all the past episodes there. If you like what you see here on Jimmy Rants, we do have a Patreon page. If you want to click on that, throw a few pennies my way. It would definitely help us stay on the air, bringing you great content. All right, guys, that's it for now. So until next time, we'll see you then. All righty. Download video, save. So you guys like that? I think that was a lot of fun. I love seeing good, positive stories as it relates to low carb, because I think a lot of times we can feel the negativity of all the bad press that low carb and keto get. So when there's good press, you can guarantee you're going to hear about it from me. We need to be encouraged. We need to know, okay, yeah, we personally get benefit out of low carb diets. We personally enjoy all of the things that it, provides for us in our health and everything. But sometimes you just need to know you're not alone. I think that's why a lot of you come back on Jimmy Rant so often. You need to kind of feel the camaraderie that all of us have here. By the way, I'm firing up my BioSense. I want to see what my ketones are. I've been fasting since about 10 a.m. this morning. And if you're not joining us on our group fast, we started a group fast today. It's going to be 7 days. So we started this. Go back and watch my Jimmy Rants from earlier today. But we started a group fast. And yeah, so water and salt only. Salt. Water. I don't want to drink water because I got to blow into this thing. Yeah, so join us. You don't have to go the whole 7 days. If you want to go a day or two, see how you feel, but definitely come here. We're going to help you with some of the symptoms. What was it? About an hour ago, I had just finished, just a little over an hour ago, almost 2 hours ago, I was mowing my grass outside. And so when I got done and I was cooling off and rehydrating, I started getting intense hunger feelings. And so So I even feel those kinds of effects. So, all right, let's see. It's still warming up. All right, now it's ready. All right, so it's going to analyze that. Doesn't take long. So if you missed it, this is the BioSense. It's a medical grade breath ketone device, and it's about a 10-to-1 ratio. So in other words, if you blow a 10 on here, it's like 1.0 on a blood ketone meter. So I blew a 3, which is 0.3, which is typical because when I got done blowing, or I got done mowing, excuse me, I just got done blowing. I got done mowing an hour ago. Got done mowing, I had my blood sugar, which I am measuring with this Freestyle Libre. So I've got the little continuous glucose monitor. My blood sugar while I was mowing got up in the 120s. So people are, oh my gosh, what in the world happened? Well, you're exercising. So when you exercise, you have higher glucose. So higher glucose will kill ketones. So that's what I'm thinking happened. But day 1 of my fast, it'll go higher here in the coming days. And if that interests you, come back tomorrow at 11 a.m. We will talk more about fasting. So, all right, let me pop off of here for now. Until next time, guys, we'll see you then. Thank you, YouTube. See you later.